With Madrid slipping yesterday, Barcelona had a golden chance to get back to the top of the table. The Camp Nou had been a fortress this season, 11 wins from 11, and Levante, sitting in relegation, arrived just hoping to survive. And somehow, that golden chance has me talking about a golden Cancelo performance. But more on that later, because welcome to episode 785 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and as always, a big thank you to everybody that joined me on the watch along on BigUp. For this one, we had some fun. We chatted about some evergreen ideas, and I hope to do more of the same, but actually it's probably going to be a much more hotly contested matchup on Saturday morning against Villarreal, so join me to play the prediction game on BigUp for that one. And also, thank you to everybody that has become a subscriber on YouTube, helps me out on the podcast apps, helps me out on Patreon, the merch store, or even joins in the conversation on Discord. All right, with all that out of the way, let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-0 win over Levante. Headline 1 is Cancelo opens up the low block. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Balde not starting in his second straight game and actually not even featuring off the bench in this one. But the conversation against a low block really is more about Cancelo and how his abilities today broke things down that Levante at least thought they'd have some modicum of success with. And if you don't start Cancelo against a low block, then my question would be, when do you start Cancelo? Because he did allow Barcelona to push forward and make it a 5v5 against a Levante back line of 5. Hansi Flick knew he would see that. He knew he would see a low block, again, with 5 in a deep position. So Cancelo next to Rafinha, Lewandowski, Olmo then pushing forward, and Lamine Yamal. That meant that it was 5v5 in that final zone for Levante. Koundé was able to tuck in and support Jong and Bernal, so that little reverse Christmas tree that Barcelona had going was always going to put Levante under a ton of pressure over the course of 90 minutes. That said, 2 minutes in, Levante got a shot on target. One of their only 2 shots on target in the entire game, both of which came in the first 15 minutes, but both of which were at least marginally dangerous. 3 minutes in, though, Cancelo was already showing why he's Barcelona's best attacking fullback, turning the defender inside out and delivering a nice ball to Koundé at the back post. And already within the first 5 minutes, when the momentum flipped for Barcelona, well, it flipped all the way into a goal in the 5th minute from a corner. It's a well-drawn-up play. And while Barcelona does give up some corners on the other side, at least they know how to score them off set pieces too. Cancelo in the middle receives it, goes out wide to Eric, and then he delivers to the sliding Bernal, and this is a tidy finish into the far corner. It is Bernal's second of his career, and this dude knows how to score goals. Myself included, because I'm trying to jam Pedri and Gavi and Bernal, all of which who together have never actually played a single minute as a midfield trio for Barcelona, but I am trying to jam them into my future in midfield. That said, you look at Bernal and who he is, what he can do as a goal scorer. He isn't just a Busquets regen. Is he better than Busquets as a defensive midfielder? Absolutely not. But today, while Flick said he played as a 6, he really does play almost as a box-to-box 8, and his offensive abilities, you almost don't want to keep him too far deep. Yes, he's good because of his height and ability to win second balls, but you also want him pushing closer towards goal because you see that he's also got a pretty good skill set to find the back of the net. I reiterate for the 100th time, please be patient this season with Bernal, but the more and more minutes he gets, the calmer and calmer I get about Barcelona's future midfield. Headline 2, building into the second. It's the 8th minute now, and don't forget that this game should have been 2-0 at that point. Both Rafinha and Lewandowski managed to miss one. Levante failed to clear it. It was a header intended for the goalkeeper, Ryan, and it finds Rafinha instead, but neither he nor Lewandowski on the rebound find the back of the net. Barcelona did miss some big chances. I'll give you those numbers later. Next to them, Lamine Yamal did put in a defensive shift today. Offensively, there were some moments, but by and large, Lamine Yamal, he gave the ball away in spots he usually doesn't give it away. And that was kind of the concern. João Cancelo needed to come up big on a save there in the first 15 minutes. Again, that did come from a Lamine Yamal giveaway, and Levante were able to counter. Koundé was making the underlapping run, and Olmo had gone out wide, so Barcelona was exposed on the counter there with all that space. But as you know, I usually say, it's going to take a little bit more than that to make me worry about Lamine Yamal. 27th minute, Cancelo hits the post on a cross intended for Lewandowski. Everything working for Cancelo. But on the other side, let's go back to that stat that I had in the podcast with Diego earlier in the week. It's another woodwork for Barcelona, meaning if you're counting at home, it's now 33 on the season for Barca and still just 7 for the opposition. Headline 3, De Jong's bounce back. Now we're in the 32nd minute and Barcelona have their second goal of the game. It's a Barcelona patented goal. So many bodies in the box creating confusion, but a lot of good movement, small passing, opening up the spaces. Cancelo giving Toljan headaches, bouncing it into the mixer far enough in front of the goalkeeper Ryan that he gets stuck on his line, and it's right into the path of De Jong, who made the deep run and wasn't tracked. Cancelo being on the opposite side of his natural predominant foot with the right foot. Then he curls it in a dangerous way from that side. And I have to give credit to Lewandowski and Olmo attracting attention at the near and far posts. When we talk about De Jong in this match, it's kind of less about the goal and more about the big picture, that against Levante, De Jong had to just put in almost a perfect performance to feel like Barcelona on the front foot, and they did dominate from the opening whistle until the final whistle, and De Jong was a big part of that. I almost hesitate, though, to give him too much credit, and probably the credit he deserves from this match, because of the way that he struggled in the previous two matches, in particular against a bit higher competition. But next to Bernal, instead of the sole responsibility of defending for Olmo and Fermín, De Jong really thrived next to Bernal. And then Pedri came on, and things were continuing to be easy for De Jong. In the game, he had 4 key passes, only missed 3 total passes. He was perfect on 6 long balls and won 4 of the 5 duels with 125 touches. That's about as perfect as you could possibly ask from De Jong on the day. And yet, like Koundé, I do have to temper expectations with these two because Levante didn't challenge them the way that they were challenged against Atleti and Girona, and the likely way that they're going to be challenged on Saturday against Villarreal. They weren't under the same amount of pressure, and they were given a lot of time on the ball. And as we neared stoppage time, the one defender that probably did not cover himself in glory today in Gerard Martin, well, he picked up a yellow, and so he will be missing against Villarreal, which, as I said, with Eric Garcia looking much more comfortable against this level of opposition than he did in the previous 2 games. Hopefully, Eric Garcia also got some confidence back. And then Kubarsi also getting rotated is not a bad thing for Hansi Flick. Few chances there in the second half, just to speak about. 52nd minute, it's another cross, and Eric's header is deflected away. Then Cancelo with a good cross in that is called off, but Bernal wasn't far from a brace. And then another one from Cancelo, a Trivela that just missed Gerard Martin. 58th minute, Olmo, who did have a quiet day at the office, but that's to be expected. Levante were trying to defend narrow, clogged the middle of the pitch, forced Barcelona to beat them wide, which is what they did. So that meant that Olmo and Lewandowski, well, they probably weren't going to do much in this game, as long as the wings for Barcelona were able to beat Levante, which, yeah, that's how they got the 3 points. But his one chance in the 58th minute, it came on a counter, but he couldn't get enough on it. And the 64th minute, Rafinha joins the miss party on the doorstep, working the 1-2 with Lewandowski, but again, neither of them could find the back of the net today. Headline 4, Fermín Scorcher. Before we do talk about his goal, we should probably see where he fit into this game. In the 65th minute, here comes Pedri after his month-long layoff. Fermín Lopez enters the fray, as does Ferran Torres, on for Olmo, Bernal, and Lewandowski, all like-for-like replacements. Then the 81st minute, I am skipping ahead a little bit here, but that's where Fermín Lopez, with Barcelona, not to say that they were languishing, but yeah, the energy had gotten down. Fermín, though, as one expects, always comes on with that intensity and that fire. And on this goal, well, he deserves that fire he always has in his belly. It is a banger from Fermín Lopez. Barcelona being in second gear in the second half. Levante still not close to scoring on the other side. And yet Fermín was given too much time on the ball, just lined it up, and the post finally helps Barcelona for once, bouncing it on the inside of the post, and it heads in. That, for Fermín Lopez, also comes with his left foot, which is a pretty crazy stat when you look at the diversity of goals he has scored. 30 goals now for Barcelona, 12 with his left foot, 14 with his right foot, and 4 with his head. Fermín Lopez, dude's a goal scorer. Dude's a finisher, and it was interesting that he had a quote that he had before his time at Linares when his coach said, shoot, 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 shoot all the time. He said he was just too small to be able to get enough power and to get to where he needed to put the ball in the back of the net, and he's become a goal scorer. And that just means that he's got, again, that fire in his belly to be getting better every day. Yeah, he's not clinical, but sign me up for Fermín Lopez as a Barcelona supporter every day of the week. In the 88th minute, Lamine Yamal and Gerard Martin come off for Rooney Bardghji and Araujo to make their little cameos here. And while Lamine Yamal was frustrated coming off the field, again, I'm not too worried about that. The guy plays with passion, and he did want better from himself on the day. I think that's really what we saw. And Hansi Flick, maybe reading in between the lines, wasn't too happy with the way that Lamine Yamal reacted to getting subbed off, but he sounded like, hey, that's what happens in the heat of battle. And he quickly switched the focus onto talking about how Rooney Bardghji deserves minutes. So I would expect that for Lamine Yamal. It's not a knock on Rooney. It's that Lamine Yamal just wanted better from himself on the day, and he wanted to stay in for the remainder of that game to make that happen, which makes sense as a professional who's always looking for goals and assists the way that Lamine Yamal is. And lastly, we might see more of this in the coming weeks because with these early kickoffs, and they also coincide with Ramadan, which started last week, the resident Ramadan celebrators on the team in Alejandro Balde and Lamine Yamal, well, they're fasting during the games and prior to the game. So if there's two guys that you just in the coming weeks here want to have an eye on their energy levels throughout these matches, it is Lamine Yamal and Alejandro Balde of anybody else in Barcelona. Rooney Bardghji, for his money, comes on the field and immediately makes things happen. Good to see that he's continuing, even in limited time, to play with some confidence, forcing Ryan to make an excellent save on a Rafinha header. And then, again, Matt Ryan, this is a crazy save on the rebound that Fermín could have had a brace on right there on the doorstep. But the keeper for Levante keeps us at least a respectable 3-0. Headline 5, back to the top. Before we go, I do want to talk for a second about Carlos Etienne, who came off the bench for Levante. And for those who haven't been watching him, I did speak about him in the last podcast with Diego. I find it interesting that he, yes, could be the answer for Barcelona, but it seems like the time at Levante when I thought he would be more proven and I would get more of a sample size to understand who he is. In fact, I've gotten less. For Levante, he hasn't really been a consistent starter. Yes, he does lead that team in goal still, which they have struggled to do. They concede way more than they actually score themselves. But Etienne, even in this match, just shows you that it's almost impossible to judge him this season at Levante. In this match, he had just one pass. He was 1 of 1, and he had 3 total touches. And he came on the 70th minute. So what can we expect of him? What can we learn of him? I'm not sure. He becomes more of a risk now, maybe cheaper, but more of a risk if Barcelona go for him at the end of this season after what is not shaping up to be the kind of campaign at Levante that they would have wanted as a club and that Etienne was able to change any fortunes of. To wrap this one up, Cancelo, that's your MVP. I would say that yes, Cancelo against top level attacking players. I am not ready to have some long conversation about him and Balde just yet. I think we'll save that maybe for sometime midweek. Bigger picture, though, Cancelo, he did a great job creating chances for Barcelona. 6 big chances, though, missed by the Blaugrana today. So continuing to not have a very high strike rate, that continues to be the problem. Yet they still outperformed their 2.92 XG. The best news, though, for Barcelona, they were looking at that 100% home record coming in, and now they've made it 12 for 12. And most importantly, they are back on top of the table after Madrid's stumble against Osasuna yesterday. As I've been saying, it's Villarreal next Saturday, the third place team in the Liga. It's going to be another huge challenge for this team as Hansi Flick looks to bounce back from his first back-to-back losses since October. And of course, join me on Saturday for the watch along on Big Up, and we can play the prediction game before that. So again, this was a pretty simple, straightforward win. So you enjoy them just as you do the big games. I hope you have a great weekend and a great week until I see you next time. Until then, Forza Barca.